Hi, my name is Mark Hutton, and I'm the Vegetable Extension Specialist. And what I'm going to talk about today is a little bit about some season extension techniques. So the first thing we can do as part of our season extension techniques, or number one, would be to use transplants. By starting the plants early in the season in your house or in a greenhouse, that can help get us a jump on the season. The next thing we can do to increase earliness and extend our growing season is using different types of mulches, particularly black plastic mulch, as you can see here. So we want to make sure we have the plastic tight to the soil surface, because the way black plastic heats the soil or holds the temperature in, or the soil temperature is raised, is by physically conducting the heat into the soil. So the plastic has to warm up and then conduct the heat into the soil. And then once it's there, it'll trap it in by preventing radiation of long wave radiation back out at night. We can use clear plastic, and you'll see that often in some crops, particularly things like sweet corn, where we get direct warming of the soil by solar radiation. The problem with clear plastic is that we also get a lot of weed growth. So I'd have to use herbicides underneath that plastic to keep the weed growth down. But black plastic, because it eliminates photosynthetically active light from getting through, we don't get the weed growth, which is the second added benefit of using plastic mulch, is reduced weed growth. The other advantages of using plastic mulch is that we can use less fertilizer. Fertilizer that we put down in the field only has to go underneath the black plastic, and the only place that fertilizer is going to go is being taken up by the plant. We're not going to get a lot of nutrient runoff or leaching due to excessive rains. Plastic will also help reduce the amount of moisture we need. We put the plastic down in the early spring when there's plenty of soil moisture, and it traps that moisture there, so the only place it's going to go is by taken up by the plant. So lots of good reasons to use black plastic mulch. Now, if we're using black plastic mulch, there are other techniques we can add on to that and get an additive benefit. The next thing we would be looking at are different types of row covers, and we have a couple examples to show you here today. One of the first ones that came out was clear plastic over the top of the rows, where we use a 9-gauge wire bent into a hoop to support the plastic above the crop. Now, when we first started doing this, we used plastic, just plain plastic, but as you might imagine, the soil or the temperatures, the air temperatures under there would get quite high, and on a bright sunny day it would get hot enough to kill the crop. So we had to come up with ways to vent it. What's called slitted plastic, and that's what you see here. And if you look at this plastic, it's got what really looks like fish gills along the length of the plastic on both sides. And this is kind of interesting in the way it works. When it's warm, the plastic is pliable and flexible, and so it opens up and allows ventilation. At night, when the plastic cools down, shrinks, and gets stiff, it closes up and prevents heat loss. So basically it becomes a self-venting operation. An alternative to using slitted row covers or other types of row covers that need some sort of support would be the use of floating row covers. And if you sow, you'll immediately recognize this material as interfacing material. These are spun-bonded polyesters or polypropylenes that we can put directly over the crop. We bury the edges to hold it in place, and you can see we put it down loose, and that'll allow the plants to grow underneath, and the plants themselves can support the weight of this row cover. Now, this type of cover works best on vining crops, so things like cucumbers, watermelon, cantaloupe, squash, winter squash, and pumpkins. We could put this on right after we seed, right after we transplant, and leave it on until the plants start to run and they start to flower. At that point, we're going to be into July. Air temperatures are warm, soil temperatures are warm, and we'd simply remove these covers to allow pollination insects to get in and pollinate the crop. Floating row covers also work well for the brassicas, so cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, and lettuce crops or leafy greens crops. Where you don't want to use this type of cover would be on peppers, eggplants, or tomatoes. those crops don't like that abrasion that comes from having this rest right on top of it. What you're looking at here are something we call low tunnels. These are tunnels made out of either CPVC plastic pipe or half-inch conduit pipe, where we bend the pipe into hoops and then we cover it with the floating row cover. So with some remay, it's held in place using clips, simple clips that'll hold it in place. And this way we can use this type of system for things like eggplants, peppers, tomatoes, where we can get some growth under there. We're not having the row cover rest on top of the crop and still getting the warming of air temperatures during the day and holding the heat in at night. We can also use it through the winter or going into the fall for our salad crops and things like spinach and lettuces, beets, and chard. These covers will actually support a snow load, so we could have a little bit of snow on this crop and still be able to get inside to harvest salad greens into the fall and early part of the winter.